Hey, it's Al Dominick, one of your hosts for Plugged In. I'm joined on the other side of the country with my fellow partner in crime, Steve Williams. Steve, what's happening, my friend?
Not much. Good to be here on a Monday morning.
Well, Plugged In is up and rolling, and we've got some really cool things happening in the world of finance. And our guest today has a green thumb and a growth mindset. Steve, can you introduce who we're talking with?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce a pretty legendary CEO in the credit union industry, Kent Oram, CEO of Idaho Central Credit Union. Kent, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, and we like to talk to interesting leaders who've had interesting results, and you certainly have. And so we want to dig in. We're going to jump in right into the Kent Oram story. For everybody's edification, Kent will be retiring this December, correct, Kent?
That's correct. I'm hanging up the spurs on December 30th.
Yeah, so we want to dig into 15 years as CEO.
Sounds good.
But Al and I want to go back. So we're gonna do some song lyrics this morning on Plugged In.
We usually go 5 lyrics, but for Kent, because it's kind of coming up on retirement, we have a special 6th one, and they all tie into some themes. We're gonna test your knowledge and see if you can figure it out.
Okay. Sounds good.
Let's go way back to the childhood. And it's Thank God I'm a Country Boy by John Denver. Well, my daddy taught me how to hunt and how to whittle, taught me how to work and play a tune on the fiddle. He taught me how to love and how to give just a little. Thank God I'm a country boy. So your background, you did farming, you worked in a car lot. How did your childhood impact, what you became as a leader?
I read those lyrics and it wasn't just my dad, it was my mom and my dad. And they taught me more than just to give a little. They taught me to give a lot. In fact, one of the things Dad used to always say is give more than you take. And you'll always come out ahead by giving more than you take. So I was raised that way, and I've tried to behave that way as their child. So, I worked on a farm, moving pipe. That's 40-foot sections of aluminum pipe through a potato field. And you walk across and hook them up and then go back and get the next one. And it's hard work. And I was 13 when I did that. So, I actually really liked that job. And then I worked at my dad, the car body shop. And that's where I realized how disgusting men can be. And because one of my jobs was cleaning the restroom. So we'll just leave it at that. And then as I went to college, I worked on a farm for a wonderful man who's since passed away. And he was a mentor to me in many ways, taught me many things. And I was sort of sad to leave his farm, but he had 3 sons that had his last name, and they were all younger than me. So I knew it was time for me to go use my degree. So Ken, how that has impacted me at Idaho Central is I'm not afraid of a little bit of hard work or a lot of hard work. I've never done anything at Idaho Central in my office that was more difficult than working on a farm. The physical labor of a farm is character building. To watch those people put everything they have at risk over a crop that is subject to weather and all sorts of unforeseen things, it just teaches you some resilience, I think.
So, Ken, when you're talking, I find this interesting. I worked in high school on a car line factory. I did the graveyard shift, and I survived for about 2.5 weeks before I got the boot. And when I got the boot, I realized I had to actually buy some steel-toed boots. So I had a negative paycheck on my first one. So I quickly realized that type of manual labor wasn't for me. But I'm just kind of curious. You talk about getting your start and your perspective, but how did you decide to go from kind of that blue collar, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and show up every day into the financial services sector and really get your career going?
Yeah, I graduated from college in 1983 with a degree in management information systems, and it was a brutal time to try to get a job. Very difficult. I had many, many, many interviews and never landed anything. And my youngest daughter, Holly, was being born in October of 1980. And I was sitting in the waiting room, and I met a man who worked at Idaho Central Credit Union, and he said, "When you graduate, give me a call." So I remembered that, and I thought, well, I'm going to give him a call. So I called him, and they hired me after an interview process. And I had never been in a room with a computer, but I was hired as the data processing manager, and I quickly made friends with the computer. And I didn't intend to stay at our credit union for more than about 5 years and get some experience. That's what everybody told me. You need 5 years of experience. So I said, okay, well, I'll go get some. But then I went to Western Kuna Management School and caught a little bit of a bug about credit unions in general, and felt like I had some aptitude for this. So that's how it happened.
Very cool. So, Kent, you grew up around Pocatello, and that's where the credit union's headquartered, not far from Utah, where a very famous family, the Osmonds, are known. And growing up in the 70s, I know. So I'm going to quote Donny Osmond, famous 80s comeback hit, Soldier of Love. So you heard I'm a rebel with a heart made of stone. I got a restless spirit that nobody can own. And I want to take a quick look here at your 15 years as CEO of Idaho Central. 620 million of assets up to about 9 billion, 8.7. Quite a run, right? And that basically is a 20% constant annual growth rate for 15 years. So that's not seen often in financial services. So you've created one of the most impressive growth stories actually for insured depositories. Here's the question though. Where were you lucky and where were you and your team smart?
Yeah, that's, I read that question a little earlier, but I need to correct your math a little. We're 9.3 billion today, just so
I can't keep up.
That's right. Anyway, no, where were we lucky? The quote attributed to Seneca of luck is where opportunity and preparation intersect or meet.
Mm-hmm.
I often think about that. And I think a lot of the times we've been prepared and then things have happened that we've been able to capitalize on. So in that way, I guess we're lucky. I'll just give a couple of examples. One was in 2018-19, we built a new data center with all sorts of remarkable capabilities and thought we'd maybe even overbuilt. And then 2020 came and we were able to deploy 700 people to work from home in 10 days. And that felt lucky, but it wasn't lucky because we were so prepared for that. But where we've been lucky is, I don't know if it's luck or not, but where we live, where we operate. Idaho is just a wonderful place to be. Good, hardworking people, including our employees plus the members that we serve. So all those things. We rolled mortgage at kind of a downtime, and it took off like crazy. We rolled business at a downtime, and it took off like crazy. We just keep building branches and that works. So I think, I don't know, it's hard to imagine that's all luck. I think that lots of that is really good decisions by all of us along the way. But we've been blessed. We're in a great place too.
What's a decision you made though, where you said, I got to admit in all modesty, that was pretty smart of us?
I think being persuadable to roll the dice big time in 2008 on a mortgage department was remarkably risky and remarkably rewarding. And I'm so proud that we together made that. And it was a gamble. It was a gamble and it feels so good.
Gotcha. I got one more question and then I'm going to let Albert ask some questions. But one thing when I met you, I didn't realize for a long time that you were a Black Sabbath fan, Kent. Usually the kids from Pocatello don't always say that, but here's a great song, After Forever by Black Sabbath and Ozzy. Is your mind so small that you have to fall in with the pack wherever they run? And so knowing you've always been an independent-minded person. When you look at the industry, you don't try to follow, quote, best practices. You try to process and think for yourselves. Take a step back and look at financial institutions right now. Where do you see the herd mentality and where would you say financial institutions need to break from the pack? They need to think more independently.
Yeah, I could get in hot water on this one, Steve.
Be careful.
One time we were having an examination years ago, and I said to one of the examiners, stop talking about best practice. You're at the place that created best practice. Why don't you look around? And so I think sometimes we can find ourselves defending things that shouldn't be defended. Credit unions are doing really well, and some are very innovative and very well run. We're doing just fine. And I think that sometimes in order to try to squeeze us into the box, then innovation is crushed. And I hate that. And so we resist that where we can. We're still a highly regulated business. And so, it's tough sometimes, but I think that there's a lot of things available to a credit union or other financial institutions that are just across the line. And I don't mean across the legal line. I mean, just across the regulatory line. And so I'm also a NASCAR fan. And there's a NASCAR saying that says, if you ain't cheating, you ain't racing. And I don't go quite that far, but right. We push the limits for sure.
Yeah, it's always that regulation versus customer experience as well. How easy do we make it versus how much do we put them through compliance? Sorry, I'll go ahead.
No, I want to finish this one more thought. So one thing that's also very important is to develop a, a, a relationship with the regulatory agencies where you understand each other too. And so sometimes you get a little bit of, not, you don't go across their lines or break their rules or anything, but you get a little bit of latitude when you come to the world of best practice by having really good relationship with the regulators.
Yeah. So as I'm listening to Kent, I really wish we'd taken some Ricky Bobby quotes and like scattered them through. And
I have them. I don't know what to do with my hands right now.
Well, what's interesting is I listened to the two of you talk. This whole concept, that Louis Pasteur famously, created, that fortune favors the prepared, has been co-opted of sorts by the crypto world. So, Matt Damon was doing ads during the Super Bowl about fortune favoring the brave. And, the whole technology space that we're in, I think really reinforces that, you follow people not by title, but by the behavior and the way they treat others. And so technology is a wonderful tool, but that's just it. It's a tool that has to be married to a business strategy and concept. So, Steve's tossed a few musical lyrics at you. I wanted to take something from Styx that says, the problem's plain to see, too much technology. Yes, machines to save our lives, machines dehumanize. And now the three of us can say at the same time, Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. So, clearly Styx was onto something when they authored those lyrics. But, what strikes me as somebody who for years spent a lot of time in the banking world and kind of looking over the fence at what are these progressive, growth-focused credit unions doing? It looks like Idaho Central has made some really big, bold moves in technology with players like Salesforce, Alchemy, Temenos, Encino. Like, these are household brand names across the banking sector. So what's been your, approach and really maybe the secret to being able to use these technologies to have specific business impacts? Because again, these are tools that require teams.
Yeah. And if you rewind 15 years ago, we couldn't have afforded to do what you just described, but it isn't 15 years ago anymore. And now we can afford to do those kinds of things. We've made some big gambles on technology companies, from Core to eBranch. We've gone with companies that have had something really cool, but aren't maybe not quite proven yet, and then helped them get there. And we have a saying inside that we don't write software. We try to stay away from writing code. Nowadays, we tinker with that just a little bit, but we like to take what's on the shelf and make it work in remarkable ways that maybe the inventors didn't even imagine. And we push things hard, and we have a wonderful team. I don't even know how many there are there now, 100 plus that work in our technology area. And they're very, very dedicated, very thorough. They love to bring new, good things to life. We've hired some super smart people. We have one young man in particular that whenever he does something, I'm just like, wow, I never thought we would employ somebody like that. He's just off the charts. And so now we can take that and use it to help Idaho Central's credit unions achieve financial success.
Yeah, and leadership really is a choice. It's not a title. And the fact that you're able to attract folks to a part of the country that people like me who live on the East Coast would say, would I ever move my family, from New York, from Boston to DC to Idaho? I think a few years ago you would have said no way. Now you'd at least give some pause and think, let's consider the upside and the opportunities. Steve and I have spent some time listening to some tracks as we've driven from airport to airport. One of the ones that we both kind of hum along to is by Sly and the Family Stone, and it goes a little something like this. Sometimes I'm right and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my song. The butcher, the banker, the drummer, and then makes no difference what group I'm in. I am everyday people. So I'm going to tie that everyday people theme to the idea that, you have really gained incredible market share against some of the nation's largest banks. And part of that success, I have to imagine, comes from being really just a part of the fabric of your local communities. So take a step out of your role and just, think more broadly. What do local financial institutions need to really understand and execute on if they want to not have your success, not have your experience, but, have your growth mindset and dedication to growing the communities you're a part of?
There's a couple things I don't get. And I don't get why sometimes institutions don't engage with communities in the ways communities want to be engaged with. And we're one of those. In 2006, when people tried to reach out to us, we always wanted something from them. It was, what do you have for us? And then we'll consider you. Mm-hmm. And in 2008, I flipped that. And I said to my team, hey, why don't we reach out and see if everybody will reach back? Why don't we be first instead of second? Mm-hmm. And out of that grew what we call the Green Team. And we have, 50 some Jeeps that are wrapped. We have Mercedes Sprinters. We go to, I think last year was 1,400 events around our communities. And the Chambers of Commerce know when we roll into town because we walk in their office and sign up. They don't have to recruit us. We're involved everywhere. So what I don't get is why some other institutions, some have started to figure out, hey, that might have some power. It doesn't just have a little bit of power. It has immense power. It's harder to do in some credit unions in larger markets maybe than ours. I'd never worked in a place like that, so I don't know for sure. But I can tell you right now, in our area of the world, it works like crazy to be a part of communities, to have them know you have their back. Every now and then you step on your toes, and then they'll let you know, hey, that's not what we expect from you. And I think that when you start to get that kind of a feedback from a community, you've really become a part. You've really become ingrained in how they behave. And now we're trying to take that into Washington a little bit, and we were named the I can't say that word, philanthropic number one in the city of Spokane for 2022. It's like crazy. We've only been there a year, but that's because that's how we engage with the community. They see us, they feel us immediately.
Yeah. It's also big contributor to culture, right? And people wanting to work there and stay there as well. And in the world of ESG, it sounds so simple, but it's been a big part of your success on culture too, right?
Yeah. Oh, totally. We have people say how much you pay people to go walk in a parade and throw candy. It's like, if you have to pay people to walk in a parade and throw candy, something's wrong. That should be fun. So we make it fun. And, the homecoming parade, for a team that doesn't really do very well, sometimes we had 112 people show up to walk in the parade. So, yeah, it's a huge culture builder.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you talk about having fun. The B-52s had some fun throwing down their Love Shack that everyone is familiar with. But they also wrote Private Idaho. And so I won't bore people with the lyrics, but you should check it out because it really ties into this gift question, this bonus question for Kent. It's all around the state of Idaho, which has really exploded in the last 8 to 10 years. What do you think the future looks like for Idaho going forward?
It'll be interesting the next 2 years to see, as our country perhaps goes through a recession, how does Idaho do? In my time at our credit union over the past 39 some years, mostly we skip recessions. We just say, hey, there's a recession going on in another part of the country, but it's not really impacting us. 2008 was different. It came here too. Our demographics are really good, and people want to be here, and people want to live here, and it's for all sorts of reasons. But it's a lifestyle place in Idaho, and so it'll be interesting to see if my prediction is that we'll have a recession in the U.S. That's not a very hard prediction. But my other prediction is a little harder. Is I think Idaho's going to skip it. We're going to opt out, and we're going to do just fine. We'll be the problem will be interest rate. We have to conform to that. But everything else, there's good demand. This is a great place to be, great place to live. I wish it was still our private Idaho, but it's not anymore. But that's also good for our credit union to have new people moving in all the time because we're a place they choose.
Yeah. Well, if you make it out to Idaho, a beautiful part of the U.S., keep an eye out for that green team that Kent was talking about. Maybe they'll take you by the farm where I believe you're going to be growing some alfalfa or some hay and doing some good things on your next part of your journey. So, hey, look, we appreciate Kent Oram getting plugged in with Steve Williams and myself, Al Dominick. This is Plugged In by Cornerstone Advisors. Thanks for taking a listen. We got more tracks coming your way in the days and weeks to come.
Yeah, Ken, thanks so much. And thanks, a salute to a great leadership career at Idaho Central and all you've done there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's been a wonderful ride, and I know we're in great hands going forward.